In this video, I will show you how to make what's called a custom brush. First, I should probably show you a little bit about the regular brush in Photoshop, so you understand the difference between what you can do with a regular brush and a custom brush. So let me go ahead and make a new image temporarily to demonstrate the brush. So your brush tool is right here. If you hold down, there's a couple hidden tools. There's a pencil, color replacement, and mixer tool. We're just going to talk about the brush tool right now. Now, if you have a brush tool, you're going to be painting with colors. And you have a foreground and a background color down here. You can click on the foreground color and choose your color however you want. This gives you the basic hue neighborhood. And then within that hue, you'll have the pure intensity to lowest, desaturated black, all the way up to white, and everywhere in between. So as you go to the left, you get more desaturated. As you go higher, you get brighter. To the right, you get more saturated, darker as you go low. So you can get millions and millions of colors that way. Of course, in Photoshop, there's a million ways to do everything. So under Window, you always have things like swatches, and that gives you so many choices of colors too. I just tend to generally go through my foreground color and pick the color myself. So that's what we'll talk about now. I'll show you how you can save colors in your swatches later. Right now, let's just talk about brushes. Up here are your brush options, and there's some very interesting options here. We'll start with the simplest, though. It's an introductory class, and very, very important, where it shows a shape and a number and a little drop-down arrow. You can choose what kind of brush you use. And there you'll see there's folders with all sorts of stuff in here. But right now I'm going to go with just a basic general brush. You can adjust the hardness and the size. So here my brush looks small. If you ever can't see your brush, try hitting caps lock. If that doesn't work, it means your brush is either way too big or way too small. So once you change the size, you can adjust that. Another way to change the size without having to keep going up to your options menu are using the bracket keys on your keyboard. Right bracket makes your brush bigger. Left bracket makes your brush smaller. And then when I paint, you'll see I have this very soft airbrush look. That is because the hardness of my brush is turned down to 0. You can go anywhere from 0 to 100%. 100% gives you a much straighter, harder edge. So you can manipulate that to whatever needs you have. You also have opacity options. That. And flow, which is how much is coming out of your brush. You can use that to different effects as well. So that's the basics. Those are the most basic parts of the brush. Getting a little more into things is if you click on this folder with brushes, you have brush options, or they call them brush settings, sorry. And what you have to do is you have to actually click on the setting to change it. Now, the same thing is here, size and the hardness, but you also get this thing called spacing. And if you can see, you see these little lumps of the circles. If I turn the spacing up, it will actually space out the brush style, which is just a round brush, into actual dots. So that might be an effect you do or don't want. You might want to put them right next to each other. Now you have an interesting effect as well. Or you can make it so close that you have a very consistent line, or somewhere in between. Some other neat things we have. Some of these are not available unless we're using a drawing pen and tablet. But we still have a lot of options here that we're going to learn about, like shape dynamics, scattering, interesting things like that, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But this is where we'll do it. So I'm going to close that tab, that panel, to use the right words here. And I'm going to get rid of this image for now, because we can actually create our own brush. So for this assignment, you will have to create your own brush. So to do that, you go under File, New, and I am going to go, let's say, 200 pixels by 200 pixels. Leave the resolution like that. Create, create. And it gives us this tiny box, and we can make our own brush. Now, I could either draw an image that I like. You have to use black color on a white background in order to do this. You can use gray too. It should be grayscale though. So I could make an X for a brush. This, if you hand in a brush like that, I will be very upset. I just want to show you the very simplest way to create a brush, and then I'll show you a really neat brush. Okay, here's a bad brush. I'm going to go up to Edit, and I'm going to go down until I find Define Brush Preset. What you do is you're going to name it. I'm going to call this Very Bad Brush. And now you have your own brush in Photoshop when you hit OK. See? So now you have this brush. I'm going to close this file because it's tiny and make a new image. And now you have a brush here that you can paint with. I'm going to show you how you can adjust that brush. I'm going to click on Shape Dynamics, and you can jitter the size, which means it's, see how that's always the same size that you pick. You can change it, and you can see a preview at the bottom. You get very different sizes. It's much more uneven than this one is now, even when you do a straight line. So that could be something you really want. You can also have it change the angle for extra chaos. So now this looks like tinsel or something you would hang around your holiday decorations here. So there's another option there. If you combine this and go back to spacing, now you have this really interesting effect from Very Bad Brush. Now there's some actual other interesting things you can play with. Scattering. Let me clear off my screen here so we can keep practicing. Scattering, we can scatter it along so it's not following the path is exactly as you want it to. So now it's more random. Not only in size, but if I try to make an exactly straight line, it does not come out exactly straight. We can also do, you can do things with, let's say, another good one to try out would be transfer. And this is the thing where if you have a pen, the harder you push the pen, the darker it plays. But we can, even without a pen, we can do a flow jitter, or an opacity jitter, sorry. And we'll do no control. We'll just turn up the opacity differences to about 75. Now, how intensely opaque your images come out. This is all just a brush, and now you see instead of just black, we're getting all sorts of shades of black. If I pick red, it's going to give us all different shades of red. And it's not just shades, it's actually transparent. So if you're doing this on a layer, it'll be different layers of transparency. So pretty powerful for a bad brush. I'm liking it a little more already. All right. I think that's all we'll talk about for now, because now we're going to make something really, really cool. Because I'm going to show you something else you can do. Knowing what you just saw, we can go, let's say we go to Google and we look up a leaf or some grass. Blade of grass. I'll click on images, and there we go. There's a simple picture right there, a little clump of grass. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to right click on this image and copy the image. Now in Photoshop, I'll do another 200 by 200. We'll make a new brush, and I'm going to paste this image, and nothing showed up except the watermark. So I'm going to zoom out and the scaling on the image is just gigantic. So I'm going to shrink this down so that we can see the whole piece of grass here. And I'm going to make it much darker. There we go. There we go. And now I'm going to desaturate it using hue saturation. Turn this all the way down because this is supposed to be a grayscale image. So now we have this cute little blade clump of grass, and I'm going to go up to Edit, Define Brush Preset, and I'm going to call this clump of grass. I'm going to call it cute clump of grass, and now we have a brush. We can close that. We don't even need it anymore. Now if I go to paint with black, it doesn't really look like grass. It looks interesting. It looks almost like fish bones, but that's not really the effect we want. So if we go up to our brush with the folder, we can fine tune this, and pretty quickly actually. First of all, we should space out the grass so we can actually see it. And what else can we? I'm gonna go to Shape Dynamics. We'll make it so there's a variety of size of grass, because not all grass should be exactly the same size. And we can change the angle, but if we do that, we don't want any grass that's upside down in this case. So I'm not going to change this much, maybe 3% at the most. But it's going to be different with whatever you choose to do, however you apply this. I'm not going to mess with roundness. I'll click on scattering. And let's see what happens when we do that. Oh, I think I like that. I'll turn that up to, well, it goes up to 1,000. I'm going to do it about 15, 20, 30, I don't know, a very low percent. Change the count maybe. What's the count jitter? No, I'm not going to do that. No. And anything else we want to do? Just brush pose. Nope. That's for if you have a pen. We'll do, I'm not going to mess with the transfer, although it's very tempting. Yes, I will. Who am I kidding? All right, so now our grass comes out a little bit more like grass. So if I make my brush bigger, and let's say I did, well, that's really big. So I'm going to fill in this with the, actually, let's fill it in. And I know this is black grass. Watch what I do. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to paint in a bunch of this grayscale grass. And I'm not maybe going to fill in the whole thing. I'm going to fill in a lot, though. There we go. Now I'm going to control click on it, and it's going to select all the pixel information. And I'm going to pick a couple colors I really like. So maybe there's a real green grass right there. And I'll click on the background color, and I'll choose green, but maybe a browner kind of green that's darker. Maybe even a brown. Now I'm going to do a gradient. Oops. How do I want it? There we go. Yeah, a gradient where it goes from green down to brown. Pretty quickly, you have some interesting grass there. If I had a layer where there was some ground behind that was maybe really darkish soil, maybe I'll put in right here. We'll use a slightly darker version of that color and some almost black. We'll do another gradient. There we go. And I'm going to drag this underneath the grass. Oh, I don't like that. So I'm going to actually keep that here. And I'm going to erase out some of this. Ground layer. So we just see up here, we see the grass. But down here, you'll see the darkness below. So pretty quick, you get some pretty interesting grass. I'm going to add another layer on top. And what if we, using the same size grass, choose maybe a more yellowish green, maybe a little bit smaller, and put some of that in over here. Maybe some big grass up close. Maybe some extremely big grass up here, like it's really close. There we go. Now we're getting some depth. And it looks like we've been spending a lot of time on it when we haven't. All right, let's go in with smaller grass. Maybe a bluer green. Add some of that in, just a little bit here and there. And then maybe I keep adding a new layer in case I don't like it, and I can just delete the layer and it doesn't wreck everything I just did. And then we'll add some regular old green in. And I went over some of my close-up grass, so I'm going to do that again. Some more of that yellow grass, but we'll make it nice and big. So now we have, pretty quickly, interesting ground just by making a brush out of grass. So if I make another layer that's going to be, maybe we'll go to the background and we'll choose some sky colors. Maybe like a deep bluish, yeah. And then the background color, I'll choose the foreground color and then make it a little bit lighter. And then do a gradient. Ooh, there we go. And if I don't like that, I can always lighten it up a little. There we go. So now we're starting to get a landscape. I'm going to merge some of these layers. You can do that up here. Merge down or Control E. Control E is really fast. Now I want to add a little more depth going back. We have big grass here. We have grass in the middle. I want to add some layers in the back. So I'm going to add a layer. I'm going to keep, I'm going to go and hit Alt and just pick any of these random green colors. Make my brush a little smaller. And I'm just going to paint a whole bunch of grass along these edges. and go down a little. There we go. Now that looks like I just ruined it, but what I'm going to do is drag this below the grass layer we just made so it's behind it, and I'm going to go to opacity, and I'm going to drag down the opacity a little bit, and that lightens it up. Now I'm going to repeat that, or you could even duplicate the layer, but I'm not going to duplicate the layer. We're just going to paint it again because it's so fun. Now I'm going to make my grass a little bit smaller. Maybe I'll make a hill. And I'm going to paint down until maybe I'll add more of a brown. Ooh, I like that one. Ooh, I like that. Now I'm going to drag that to the furthest layer and make the opacity even lower, but not much. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know if I like that one too much. Drag it down a little lower. All right, there we go. So we're starting to get a nice field. So I think you get the idea. Now you could do the same thing with leaves. In fact, I already did. To save us time, I'm going to show you. If you ever want to find these different brushes that you made, they're up here where the shape is. You click on that and you scroll all the way down until you start finding your actual textures that you made. Here's cute clump of grass. Very bad brush. Remember that one? Here's that one. All right. Here is a grass brush that I made before. Leaf brush. Here we go. So I'm going to actually just delete everything we just did. And I'm going to choose just a bright green. And here's my leaf. Now, let's take a look at my settings. I have the transfer set up to about 30% changes in difference. For scattering, I have it scattering a lot, and it's even rotating. For shape dynamics, it's doing that. Very, very good. So it's rotating and changing size and changing opacity. So if I want to paint leaves, they go all over the place. So if I'm making a tree, I'll make my brushes real small, and I'll just start painting like this. Pick some dark leaves. Pick some in-between leaves that are maybe a little bluer. Maybe pick some leaves that are getting hit by sun. Maybe pick some leaf colors of some shadow color leaves here. So you can really do some pretty things. You can do this with flowers. You can do this with anything you think of. But this works great for leaves. So part of the assignment will be for you to create your own custom brush, and you use it inside of your assignment somehow in a meaningful way. Show you a couple examples. I did just bushes. Here's one I did of grass and bushes. A couple grass and bushes here. There we go. Here's one I did. I had shadows. I used the brush to make even shadows on the ground. And there's that same trick where I made the grass in the distance. all with just a brush. All right.